Hospital Porters, Pride and Dignity, Stop the New World Order. Welcome to Panwo TV. Right, this is the afternoon session of the Saturday show has just finished, and I've just seen a lecture by a man who I think is the speaker I most wanted to see more than any other, and it's a guy I happily come here just to see him alone, and that's Michael Glickman, the crop circle researcher, my favourite crop circle researcher.
The lecture was actually a tribute, wasn't it?
It's a tribute to John Michel, yeah. who's actually behind a lot of what you see in modern Glastonbury. Actually, he's one of the people who really put Glastonbury on the map in that respect. And this was what it was basically the centre of Michael's lecture. And Michael Glickman he's a guy he's one of the earliest researchers, and he did a series of videos called the Crop Circle Lectures. And he's not in the best of health. I mean, he's quite old now.
Yeah, he was very frail, sitting in his wheelchair there on stage, wasn't he?
Very frail, sitting in his wheelchair, very frail and wizened. Truth is, he suffers from multiple sclerosis and has done all his life. He used to be able to walk around, but it's got a lot worse in recent years. And he's just sitting there looking quite. It's quite a poignant sight actually seeing him on stage. But he was smiling, he was cheerful, and he
had a joke or two, didn't he?
He is an intellectual. He has the spirit and mind of a heroic giant, and he's lost none of his wit. He's not lost none of his style. He's an absolute joy to listen to. He's one of the most brilliant men I can think of, actually.
Yeah, I mean, that was the first time I'd heard him, and I found him quite inspirational, to tell the truth. He
definitely had his humour.
Oh God, he's got a brilliant sense of humour. He's got a brilliant flair for language. He's also highly intelligent. I mean, he's trained as an architect.
Yeah, did he say he wrote articles for the Guardian newspaper as well?
He was trained as an architect. Now, architecture is a profession by which you have to know an awful lot about a lot of other things. You have to be good at mathematics, you have to be good at engineering, you have to be good at know a lot about material science and things like that. To be an architect, it's a very, very multidisciplinary profession. I mean, he is one of the guys who's, at the same time, so he has this sort of like grounding, this sort of scientific and rationalist grounding, but he's blended it perfectly, in perfect balance with his kind of spiritual and mystical insights. And he riles against the sort of like dogmatic materialism that so many, the same thing that Rupert Sheldrake riles against in his book about scientism, what I call the skeptic.
It's scientific ignorance, isn't it? It's like, I don't want to know, I haven't looked, I'm not going to look, I don't believe you. It doesn't matter, I don't need to read your work because it's obviously crazy.
He took one look, with his expert eyes, architecture, he took one look at the crop circles and he did a little bit of tinkering with their dimensions. He realised he's looking at something designed by a very, very great intelligence. There's sacred geometry encoded into all of them. I've vacillated a lot over the years in crop circles. I fell for the Doug and Dave hoax, unfortunately. I'm not proud of myself.
Yeah, I think we're all there though. Yeah. We all did.
But I mean, I've also, I know a couple of people who make crop circles. The plankers. I know a couple of them, and some of them talk. Is
that Ryman slang?
Something like that. Yeah, I mean, it's a form of landscape art. I don't see any harm in it. But I mean, of course, a lot of the plankers, when they do lectures. I mean, one guy, Tristan Swale, does a lot of lectures about planking and making. And his idea is that they're all made by the plankers, but
every one of them.
Single one of
them.
Well,
the fellow who sold us the crop circle calendar, I'm not sure what his name was. He was obviously a crop circle researcher, and he showed us a picture. Actually, I'll get out later. He showed us a picture of a crop circle, and he says, "Now, we couldn't even walk around this in an hour. We couldn't even walk around it in an hour. Never mind, plank it out, rule it out, and measure it out." Which was a really good point that I think he made. That some of these circles are so massive, you can't even walk around them in like a couple of hours. Never mind, plank them out and measure them perfectly with all these kind of sacred geometrical measurements.
Well, this is the same thing. I mean, they have encoded into them. For instance, it's the same geometry that Paul, the other guy before, Paul Burley was talking about. The sacred proportions, the phi proportion, which is
the phi ratio.
The golden mean, the golden section, whatever you call it, which is encoded into nature.
I think it's number 1.64, and then it's got a few different digits on the end.
Decimals, like pi. It has a lot of vast number of decimals, and things like and they found that they square circles and things like that. And he's discovered things like this in nature. If you put the moon, a disc of the size of the moon, next to a disc the size of the Earth, you draw a square around the Earth. You then draw another circle from the center point, the center of the Earth, to the center point of the moon.
The edge, yeah.
That larger circle is squared by. That larger circle squares the square circle. It's a circle that's squared by the square you do around the Earth. That makes any sense.
It was quite hard to digest, but I got the gist of it.
Coincidence. I mean, you have to see the diagram, but it was John Michel who discovered this diagram. Now we all know about this strange coincidental fact that
it's all coincidence.
The apparent the disk of the moon on the celestial sphere is the same size as the disk as the Earth. Hence, you get this solar effect, the solar eclipse effect, where you see the sun's corona. That's an odd coincidence. But this is an even bigger coincidence. So, I mean, these piles of coincidences are mounting up. You know,
it's just too coincidental, all these coincidences.
But the thing about it, as I've said before, we spoke about this at the ASAP conference. Once you claim that something is coincidence, you can never be proven wrong.
Yeah, you can label every single thing in nature as coincidence.
Anything that is physically possible, you can never say this is so unlikely it just cannot happen. So that, I mean, I'm really, really...
Yeah, Michael Glickman, what a guy.
It was a very moving experience to see Michael Glickman live. It's the first time I've ever seen him live. I've watched all his videos. I actually digested all his videos. I gulped them up, the crop circle lectures. Do look up his stuff if you can. He's brilliant stuff, brilliant man, and brilliant information. Well, I'm going to reshoot my Richard Dawkins rant later on, I think, because I'm feeling like it after watching Michael Glickman. Hospital Ports, Pride and Dignity, Stop the New World Order.